Hey guys, this video is going to showcase a deck I came up with and have been working on for the past couple of days. It's a very strong deck, and without further ado, let's see if I'm lucky enough to actually make the combo pop. Meanwhile, I just keep getting opponent after opponent surrendering, and it doesn't allow me to showcase the combo itself. Hopefully, it's not going to happen this time and I'll actually be able to showcase it. This is a pretty bad start, but I will risk it. Okay, it's one of those guys. I'll be honest though, it seems to be improving somewhat. So Ancient Adamantoise is one of the pieces of the combo. And I will now fetch the second piece of the combo. So the Adamantoise, I'll leave it on the screen so you can read what it does. Pause the video if you want to actually read it carefully. Now, this is the second part of the combo, and again, pause the video if you want to read it carefully, and it's an interaction between these two cards. And there's one more ingredient for it all to pop off, which I don't have right now, and that is a method of generating a token. But let's do this. Let's say white. Next. No attacks. Now what can I ramp to? Next turn, one of the Adamantoise is going to cost 6, and I have 7 mana. That's fine. This is all fine. I'm okay with all of this. Oh, it has Death Touch. My bad. Still okay. Oh, no it isn't, because now it's not going to get cheaper. Oh well, oh, that makes everything easier. Monster Manual. Activate it. Bam. Step 1 is done. That's fine. I don't care about Muldrove though. Can I make it pop off this turn? I guess we shall. Oh yeah, absolutely. And now I enchant one of them. And I will pass the turn. Now, as soon as he deals me any damage, all the damage gets redirected to the Adamantoises. And I will redirect all the damage to this token. Or sorry, not to the token, to the extra copy, unenchanted copy of Adamantoise. And when it dies, it would generate 10 tokens. So in a way, I'd actually be kind of glad if he swings at me and deals as much damage as he can. Otherwise, I need to find a way to sacrifice the Adamantoise. could just swing into him, that's another option. Should have attacked with the other Adamantoise as well. I don't think he read the Adamantoise if he's planning on blocking those other creatures. It doesn't really matter. Come on, dude. Nice. This one's gonna be taking damage. Nice. Okay. And I will take action. And now it's a good game. So that was the combo. I now have 10 copies of Adamantoise, and I have a pool of 200 health, and next turn I am swinging for 80 damage. Yep. So that was the deck. And now I'll go over its components and explain the various synergies and all that kind of stuff. That was pretty fun. So, okay. 4 Llanowar Elves for ramping. Utopia Sprawls, besides ramping, they're not just ramping, but they're ramping as an aura. And Heliod's Pilgrim can fetch auras. So in the early game, I would, if I have one of these in my hand, I would probably want to fetch a Utopia Sprawl to ramp up to 8 as fast as possible, because Adamantoise is a pretty expensive creature unless you have some of the other pieces that I'll talk about in a second. But in any case, the fact that you have the flexibility to pull either this aura or Moonlit Meditation, which is the second component, is pretty nice. Fuel Tank Feaster is one of the MVPs of this deck, because not only does it give you 1 mana of any color, so it helps you ramp, it fixes your mana for playing white or blue, which these 2 cards are the only ones that you actually need white or blue for. So if you have one of these in play, you can probably play Moonlit Meditation and Heliod's Pilgrim just based on the Fuel Tank Feaster paying that 1 mana. But not only that, for every turn that Fuel Tank Feaster is on the board and you have, let's say, an Adamantoise in your hand, the Fuel Tank Feaster is going to choose the most expensive creature in your hand, which is almost always going to be the Adamantoise, and it will lower its colorless cost by 1 each turn. So let's say turn 2 you play Feaster and you have an Ancient Adamantoise in your hand. Turn 3 it will cost 7 instead of 8. Turn 4 it's going to cost 6 instead of 7, and very often you, with all the ramp, you would already be able to play it at turn 4. Turn 5 it's going to cost 5, I believe. Oh, I might be wrong on the math, but you get the point. It basically, and if you have 2 of these on the board, then even more so. The one thing that is inconvenient is if you have 2 Adamantoises in your hand, it's going to choose one of them randomly. So you're not guaranteed to have the same one get lower in its mana cost every turn, but hopefully you have only 1 in your hand, so it will progressively make it cheaper and cheaper every turn, making it easier and easier to ramp into both it and hopefully also play Moonlit Meditation on the same turn. Cubation Druid is purely there for the ramp. but very often you'll find yourself on the early turns having 5 mana that you don't have anything to do with really. So you might as well just dump it into Incubation Druid so that instead of giving you 1 mana, it gives you 3, again helping you ramp even faster. Vivian's Arcbow is a tutoring card, so you could either fetch Beast Whisperer for card draw, or most likely the Adamantoise if you don't have it in your hand. You would need to pay 8, and then it would allow you to look at the 8 top cards of your library, and if the Adamantoise happens to be one of those 8, you can put it onto the battlefield directly, and yeah, this helps you fetch it faster and put it into the game faster. Fiend Artisan is a very important tool in this deck for 2 very important reasons. One of them is that just like Vivian's Arcbow, it is a fetch tool, so you can pay 8 plus 1 black or green, in this case green, sacrifice another creature, and you can search your library for a card that costs 8 in this case, and if X is 8, you could play an Adamantoise again directly onto the battlefield, and you could fetch it from anywhere in your deck. But the sacrifice clause helps with the combo, which I will explain in a little bit. And besides, it can fetch any other card like the Beast Whisperer, or a lot of times you would want it to fetch Heliod's Pilgrim. So with Heliod's Pilgrim, you can then fetch Moonlit Meditation, and Heliod's Pilgrim, once you fetch an aura with it, so either the Moonlit Meditation or in the early turns Utopia Sprawl for ramping, you end up having a 1/2 body on the board that is pretty useless for anything, except you can use it as sacrifice fodder for Fiend Artisan. So you could use Fiend Artisan and, let's say, sacrifice the Llanowar Elves, put down a Pilgrim. Next turn you sacrifice the Pilgrim, pay 8, put down an Adamantoise or a Beast Whisperer if you already have an Adamantoise, or if you just want card draw. Again, it's pretty flexible. And the sacrifice clause, like I said, I'm going to get to it in a little bit. Heliod's Pilgrim I just discussed. You can either pull the Utopia Sprawl or the Moonlit Meditation from your deck, whatever one you need. Most of the time it's going to be for fetching the Moonlit Meditation, unless you already have it in your hand. And Moonlit Meditation is one of the combo pieces that you're going to need. Beast Whisperer is there for the card draw because we have 4, 8, 10, 14, 18, 20, let's say 19, 23 creatures. So there's a lot of card draw potential with this. And it's just a very good way to keep your hand full, especially if you ramp to it early and you manage to play Llanowar Elves, you draw a card, you play a Fuel Tank Feaster, you draw a card. Monster Manual is insanely powerful here because both of its components help us very much. So you could use the 3 sorcery in case you don't have the Ancient Adamantoise, and you would mill 5 cards, which you don't really care about. And if the Adamantoise is in one of those cards, or if you have the Adamantoise already in your hand and you want to fetch a Moonlit Meditation, it could be a Pilgrim, and then you get your Pilgrim to your hand to then fetch Moonlit Meditation when it enters the battlefield. That is the sorcery component of Monster Manual, and obviously the main part of it is going to be the artifact part, which you pay 2, and you can put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. So that would be, for the most part, ideally you want it for the Adamantoise, but it could also play Beast Whisperer from your hand for 2, which is really, 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 really strong, or even Heliod's Pilgrim for 2, or occasionally, because we're not running all basic lands, so sometimes you might actually not have 2 green. Well, this turns the 2 green into 1 green and 1 colorless to play Fiend Artisan. That's going to be a rare case, but it can happen, you never know. But ideally, again, Monster Manual is there to play Ancient Adamantoises from your hand. Now, the combo, which I will now get into, has a few stages. First of all, you need to play Adamantoise. Second point, you need to enchant it with Moonlit Meditation. Adamantoise says that first of all, it takes all of it, your damage and damage that would be dealt to your creatures. It's dealt to it instead. So that already is a really powerful effect that can make you, that can sustain you with pretty aggressive decks and decks that deal a lot of damage. 20 is a lot of damage to soak up. And when it dies, it generates 10 treasure tokens, which is more than it costs, which is also really nice. But that's not what we're really after. And it also, if people want to get rid of it with exile effects, for example, they would have to pay the Ward 3, which for a lot of decks is pretty expensive, especially if you ramp up into it early enough. And Moonlit Meditation, what it says is whenever you would generate any kind of token, the token may enter as a copy of the enchanted creature. In this case, it's going to be an Adamantoise. So step 1, you play an Adamantoise. Step 2, you enchant it with Moonlit Meditation. Step 3, you generate a token or play another Adamantoise from your hand or from your library or whatever the case might be. But you need to have Ancient Adamantoise with Moonlit Meditation and another Ancient Adamantoise, either a copy generated from just a token or playing another one from your hand. Now, a very important note about Moonlit Meditation is it says the first time you would create one or more tokens each turn. So it only works once per turn, but it can work either on your turn or your opponent's turn. And this is very important because you need to keep that in mind when you want to make the combo pop off and generate 10 copies of Adamantoid. So Adamantoid, when it dies, either by taking 20 damage over time, or by you sacrificing it, or by an enemy swinging into you, and then it takes the damage for you, or by you attacking with various creatures, and then the opponent blocks those creatures, which the damage is then dealt to Adamantoise. If you have several copies, you get to choose which of the copies is going to be absorbing your damage. And you want all of the damage to be redirected towards the copy of Adamantoise, not the one that has the Moonlit Meditation on it. And once that copy dies, it generates 10 treasure tokens. But that can trigger Moonlit Meditation, so that rather than 10 treasure tokens, it creates 10 Ancient Adamantoise tokens. And 10 Ancient Adamantoise tokens is a 200 health life pool. And the next turn you can swing for 80 damage, which wins practically all games. So once you have those 10 on the board, it's very, very likely that you'll win the game at that point. Castle Ardent Vale, not only is it a white to pay for Heliod's Pilgrim, but it also has a second part where you pay 4 to create a 1/1 white human creature token. And that token could, in case you don't have another method of generating tokens, would become an Ancient Adamantoise. Then you need to skip a turn, because if you generated a token copy of Adamantoise, then you've already wasted the Moonlit Meditation proc for that turn. You would have to wait for your opponent's turn to do something about it, or alternatively wait for your next turn. And another land that we have here is this one, Volatile Fault, which is a land that gives you a colorless mana, which is obviously good for ramping, but if you sacrifice it, you can destroy a non-basic land an opponent controls. Most opponents are going to run non-basic lands, and they can search your library for a land card and put it into the battlefield, then shuffle. You create a treasure token. The treasure token as well can generate a copy of Ancient Adamantoise, and once you have, like I said, the main Ancient Adamantoise enchanted with Moonlit Meditation and you have another copy of Ancient Adamantoise. At that point, the combo is all set up, and then all you need to do is either let the copy die naturally or attack with it and let the opponent figure out how he's going to deal with that. If he blocks it, then it's likely going to die eventually. If he doesn't block it, then you just swing for 8 every turn. If he attacks you, then it absorbs that damage and then dies. When it dies, it will generate 10 copies of itself. And then if on a different turn, one of those copies would die in some other way, it again generates 10 extra copies, then you would have 19 copies, and you can grow it exponentially like that. Well, not exactly exponentially, because it only does work once per turn, but you get the idea. So that's what this deck does. We also have Tranquil Landscape just to filter our deck a little bit, and also it has a cycling effect, so that if you already are set when it comes to mana and you have everything in place, but you're just missing some of the pieces, like Fiend Artisan, which you would use to sacrifice the copy to generate the 10 extra copies. You could even use Fiend Artisan and pay X equals 0, sacrifice another creature, and it won't search your library for another creature, but it will kill the copy of Ancient Adamantoise, which would then generate 10 more copies. But keep in mind, you can only use it as a sorcery, so that would only work on your turn. So it would need to be played on a turn which is a different turn from the turn in which you generated the original copy of Ancient Adamantoise. I hope that was clear. If it's unclear, you could just comment and I will try to elaborate on what's going on. But I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The main premise is that the Adamantoise both soaks up all the damage that you and your creatures take, and when it dies, it generates 10 tokens. Those 10 tokens can trigger Moonlit Meditation in order to create even more copies of Ancient Adamantoise. And the rest of the deck is just there to enable it. And as you can see, because of all of the ramp, it's pretty consistent, and because of all the tutoring, it is also pretty consistent. So you could fetch tutors, or just in general, you might be lucky enough to get Monster Manual in either the opening hand or one of the top decks afterwards. I hope you enjoyed, and have a good one.